Okay, so welcome to our latest edition of Living with COVID-19. So I have two very special guests with me today. So I have Bill and Rose Homan, and they're joining us all the way from Auckland in New Zealand. So Brooke and Rose, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, great. Sorry, just correction, we're not in Auckland, in Picton, actually.
Okay, so first of all, for our audience, could you say a few words about yourselves?
Well, actually, we're actually related to you. From I think about a second or third cousin, I think it is. Right. But Rose and I, we used to live in Auckland.
But now we move in Picton.
Now we moved down to Picton, and I'm a New Zealander, and Rose is from the Philippines. But we've been married for 12 years now. So
not yet.
Yeah, and I'm semi-retired, and Rose.
I'm still working.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, we had a little puppy called Mimi. So
Yep.
yeah, simple life, but happy. Yeah, happy life. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so when did COVID-19 first come across your radar then? When did you first hear about the epidemic?
Well, we started to hear about it way back, I thought, at end of January. End of January, beginning of February, when China was starting to have some problems over there. And then it was the lead story on the news every night.
And did you think you would make it to New Zealand in the end, or did you kind of see it as something that's just affects other parts of the world?
But no, I hadn't made it to New Zealand then.
Yeah, so did you think of the virus as just a problem for other countries, or did you imagine that one day it would catch up with you in New Zealand?
Well, yeah, I don't think we ever thought that it would ever come this far. We thought that because there's been other pandemics and epidemics around the world, like Ebola in Africa, and that sort of stays there. It's never really gone any further than that. They managed to contain it, and I think New Zealand basically thought that they'll contain it, but then when it did start to get a little bit out of control, the first thing the New Zealand government did then was, when they shut the borders to anybody coming from China, that's our first sort of indication that there's something wrong here. This could be bad.
So we've just moved inside. Just been caught in a rainstorm outside, so we've had to move the show indoors. Okay, so when did the lockdown actually begin for you?
The lockdown was March 25th, I think, was when the full lockdown started.
So what kind of conditions were you, what kind of restrictions were you living under when that started?
Well, basically it was only, you had to stay at home. You're allowed to go for a short walk, like a walk around your block, or stay within your immediate area. The only thing that was open was basically petrol stations, pharmacy, and supermarkets.
Yep. Right. And only essential worker allowed to work. So basically, some contractor can't. Like, your company is closed. So I work. Sorry. What is it?
But basically, all businesses were shut down. The only thing that was open was essential services.
Okay, and how long did that last for? Because I heard you mention that things have eased up a little bit since.
Yeah, no, that lasted. The lockdown lasted for 32 days. Right. The full lockdown, what we called level 4. And then after the 32 days, we went to 2 weeks of level 3, where we were allowed basically to travel a little bit further. It's stay within your region. Okay. And then just recently, we went to what they call level 2, where restaurants opened, but you're only allowed no more than a group of 10. And that's basically where we are now.
So during those 32 days of lockdown, did the supermarkets have enough food and essential items stocked?
Oh yeah, plenty.
Mm.
Yeah, we had plenty of items. I think the main problem in some supermarkets was people panic buying, and they would go and stupid things like toilet paper.
Oh, that happened in New Zealand as well.
Yeah, they were buying just rolls and rolls and rolls of toilet paper and stupid things like that, and that didn't actually cause a shortage, but what it was, the supply couldn't
keep up
with the demand. That was all it was.
Okay, so during the 32-day full lockdown, what was your daily routine like?
A lot of walkies.
Yeah, did a lot of walking, and as you've probably seen or heard, we got a little
a little trouble.
a small dog that causes a lot of anxiety. But we went for a lot of walking. The other thing, like I mentioned before, we used to live in Auckland, and we sold out of there and we moved down to Picton, which is the top of the South Island, and we bought a house. And of course, so during the day, as you know, when you've just moved into a new place, you've got a lot of tidying up and organising. So I just organised a little bit here, there, and everywhere, and sort of did bits and pieces every day. Rose, she works at the local rest home for the aged, so she was classified as an essential worker. So Rose just carried on working all the way through.
It's normal hours, like.
Yeah, no, I just got to say, basically, we just I'd say just go into cruise mode, I suppose, and you're walking down the street and you see somebody coming towards you. Most people were pretty good; they kept their distance. Crossed over to the other side of the street. They had a 2 meter rule, that no closer than 2 meter to anybody else.
Yep, even supermarket.
Yeah. During this time, have you been able to do any more sailing?
No. You're not. That's the other thing. You're not allowed to do that. And level 4. No, we're not allowed to do fishing. No. Not allowed to do it at the moment. Yes, we can now at level 2. Yes, you can, but in level 4 and level 3, no, we can't. Yep.
Because of any recreational sort of sport or activity wasn't allowed, simply because if you got into trouble, that involved the emergency services to come and rescue you.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, that was why they didn't allow that. But once they went down to level 2, then everybody's out with the boat and pretty much back to normal now.
So during the lockdown, were people generally very accepting of the restrictions, or were there some people who still wanted to do their own thing?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean,
yes, of course, yeah.
Most people, I would say that 95% of the people accepted it and realised the seriousness of the whole situation.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, another question I want to ask as well. Have there been any local reports of interesting stories, anything like that that's been going on? Any interesting personal stories that you've heard of from people during the lockdown?
No, not really. I mean, now that we're out and about and the shops are more open, you do talk to people at the counter. Like if you're in the checkout or something like that, you just say, hi and just sort of talk to them and just say, oh yeah, you're glad to be back at work. And you do get mixed answers. Some of them say, yeah, glad to be back at work, and other ones say, well, no, I quite enjoyed the break. It was a bit of a holiday. So, so yeah, some people didn't like it because they weren't earning any money, and other ones liked it because they treated it like a holiday.
Okay, so do you think in the next few weeks the lockdown is going to be completely lifted? Have you heard any news on that?
No.
Not until this Monday.
Yeah, they're going to make another decision tomorrow, this Monday, but it's the whole lockdown process is not going to be over very, very soon. I think it's going to last for another couple of months, 2 or 3 months at least, simply because they will ease the restrictions gradually. Like I said before, there's a limit on the amount of people you can have in a gathering. At the moment, it's 10 people. But they are talking about increasing it to maybe 20 people for a couple of weeks. And then after a couple of weeks, they might increase it to sort of 30 or 40 people. So that coming out of the lockdown will be a very gradual, progressive sort of state. But as far as New Zealand borders are concerned, I doubt very much whether they'll be open for another 6 months yet.
Yeah, it could be something similar here in China as well, but it's just very difficult to say.
Yeah. I have been talking about opening the borders between New Zealand and Australia, but I don't believe that'll happen until Australia has 0 cases.
Right. Okay, and do you follow the situation in Australia very closely?
Not really closely, just bits on the news. You know, I mean, that's bits and pieces on the news, and that's about it.
Okay, so for the important part of the interview, because of course we're on iChongqing at the moment, I just wanted to ask, do you know much about the city of Chongqing and China in general from over there in New Zealand?
No, not really. No, I think New Zealanders are probably a little bit ignorant of China. I mean, it's we hear bits and pieces, but because New Zealand's sort of such an island state, that we do tend to sort of hibernate a little bit, as you like, and sort of stay within our own sort of areas. And that there are some New Zealanders that have done a lot of travelling, as you know. I've done a bit myself, along with Rose as well. But I would say probably 3/4 of New Zealanders, you know, they're quite happy. They're very ignorant, I'd say. Just correct that. They're a bit ignorant of what's happening in the rest of the world and other countries.
Well, of course, then you know, you're welcome to subscribe to us at iChongqing and spread the word a little bit. And also, well, once the epidemic is over and all the restrictions are lifted, I hope both of you can make it to Chongqing one day. And likewise, I'm very much looking forward to the day I can travel to New Zealand for the first time myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once the restrictions are limited, you're more than welcome. You know, I mean, there's always a bed here for you. And as we get a bit more settled, we could look at coming back up that way.
Absolutely. Okay, that sounds great to me. So I just want to thank both of you very much for joining us on Living with COVID-19 today. So it's been great speaking to you and catching up.